Hello and welcome to Samuel Ramey Behind the Curtain, where we'll be hearing anecdotes about Samuel Ramey's life and career off stage or behind the curtain. I hope you enjoy this series.
Hello there.
Happy holidays!
Yes, happy holidays.
We are all decorated for Christmas.
Yes, we are. And will be for some time to come.
Because I love Christmas. And he's the Grinch. Today we're going to talk about your crossover albums.
Yes, yes. Um, I was very excited when classical artists started doing crossover, and I hoped I would, you know, some recording company would offer me a crossover album at some point. Because when I was in college, many, many moons ago, my teacher in college, Mr. Newman, used to pair his singers off because he got calls from organizations around Wichita who, when they were having meetings and they always wanted, 20 minutes or so of entertainment. So he would pair his singers off and we got sent off to make a little extra money. And it was always fun. And I always loved, singing musical theater pieces. And so when classical artists started getting involved in the crossover business, I was very excited and hoped I would get to do one or two.
You did several.
Yeah, I did several. I was a lucky guy.
Do you remember your first one?
Yes, the first one, EMI, the label EMI, Angel Records, offered me first to do an operatic aria album, which I recorded with the Bayerischer Rundfunk in Munich, and and then they decided that they wanted to at the same time release a crossover album, and advertise them together, and they made nice posters of the covers of both records and for publicity purposes. And so anyway, what it turned out to be was an all Rodgers and Hammerstein um, recording album.
And what was the classical album you did?
It was just various bass arias, some of the big hits.
And you said that it was the same photo session for both album covers, just different outfits.
Yes, right. Yes, I was more casual for the Broadway album and all in tails and black tie and everything for the opera album. Yes, and we got for the Broadway album, they got for a conductor and arranger, a man named Peter Matz. And he was very well known in the business at that time because he had done some years before the really famous Barbra Streisand Broadway album. So I was very excited to get to work with him. And I remember him coming. He came to Chicago one time. I was there doing something, and he came to once he had all the arrangements done. He came to Chicago, and we went back in a practice room at the Lyric Opera and ran through everything, and then we went to London and we recorded it at the Abbey Road Studios. And it was funny, during the course of the recording, we found out that just behind the room where we were recording was the old studio that the Beatles used. They did a lot of recordings at the Abbey Road Studios, and they had shut down that studio, and it was like a shrine to the Beatles. They hadn't changed anything. It was still the old-fashioned microphones and everything. We went in there, and Peter Matt sat at the piano that was in the room and played, and we sang some Beatles songs. So that was a nice memory.
A little piece of history there.
Yes, a little piece of history.
What were some of the pieces you sang on that album?
Well, let me see if I'm not going to remember everything unless I had the album in front of me. I could read it. But I know I remembered we did the two songs um, from South Pacific, Some Enchanted Evening and This Nearly Was Mine. And let's see, there was a number of things from a couple of things from Oklahoma. Uh, June is busting out all over, and Surrey with the fringe on top, and Oh, What a Beautiful Morning from Oklahoma. And then there was something from a show called Pipe Dream, which is not one of their big hit musicals, I don't believe, but the song was called "The Man I Used to Be." It was sort of an uptown. The man I used to be. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum.
The man I used to be, a happy man was he, and aimless as a leaf in a gale. Whatever has become of that light-hearted bum, who thought he had the world by the tail? The man I used to be, his life was gay and free, and aimless as a cloud in the sky. He thought he knew the game, then along came a dame who turned him into some other guy. I've got ambition now, I've got a mission now. I aim to reach the top of the tree. That other fly by night, who flew so high by night, has vanished like a sail on the sea. And I'll never find that easy living, easy taking, easy giving fellow that I used to call me. You can never find the man you used to be. You've changed, Bob, you've changed a lot, and the gang you used to go with all concur. Changed, but you're not yourself. If this is yourself, you're not the man you were. The man I used to be would go to sleep at 3 or 4 a.m. or 7 or 9. And when his weary head wasn't near any bed, a table or a chair would be fine. A man without a goal, a sort of friendly soul, he liked to play the role of a host to any thirsty pal or a casual gal who'd stay to cook his coffee and toast. He was a ne'er-do-well who wouldn't dare do well. He never saw the top of a tree. But kinda sad I was to see the cat I was dissolving like a sail on the sea. And I'll never find that fatalistic, free and easy, egotistic optimist who used to be me. You can never find the man you used to be.
And what else? Oh, there was On the Street Where You Live from My Fair Lady.
All right. What's another one that you've done?
Well, let's see. Then I did. I got asked to do a couple of shows, parts in a couple. Um, I remember Kismet and The Man of La Mancha. The Man of La Mancha, I didn't get to do Don Quixote, but I did the part of the innkeeper who has, Hail, Knight of the Woeful Countenance. It has a nice little song.
And who played Don Quixote?
Don Quixote on that was Placido Domingo. And the Sancho Panza was Mandy Patinkin. And Aldonza, or Dulcinea, however you want to refer to her, is Julia McGinnis.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the recording process for that?
Okay. Yes. Well, I wasn't available when they all got together in London to do this recording. I wasn't free. I wasn't available. So anyway, they did the recorded all the music, everything, and then I remember going down in New York to the RCA Victor studios, and I did both of the recordings in playback, with earphones and singing along with the recorded music. And the conductor, Paul Gemignani, came, and so that was a big help. That was a big help.
To have a conductor while you're listening to the recording.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the Kismet recording was Julia McGinnis was opposite me, and the young couple was Jerry Hadley and Ruth Ann Swenson. And Mandy Patinkin was also on this recording, and as well as Dom DeLuise. So it was a very fun recording.
So you did both Man of La Mancha and Kismet in playback.
Yes, in playback.
Does that mean you never got to meet Mandy Patinkin?
Well, no, actually. It's a funny story about that. After I did these recordings, I was at my gym in New York, and they came over. One of the working people out came over and knew I was a performer of some kind, and came over and said, "Mr. Ramey, do you know who's here working out?" And I said, "No." He said, "Mandy Patinkin's here." So
At the gym?
at the gym, the same gym, yeah. So he took me over and introduced me to Mandy Patinkin, and we had. So I said, "Oh yeah, we did, the recording." He said, "Yes, I know. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you." And then I said at the time I owned some property in upstate New York, about 80 miles from New York City, and I knew from friends that live up there who told me that Mandy Patinkin had bought a piece of property on the same little country road where my property was, and so we talked about that, being up in the scenic Schwangunks mountains, but so we had a nice chat. And I think he was on a bicycle, and I just stood there and bothered him while he was trying to work out.
What other recordings have you done that are crossover?
Well, let's see. I don't remember. This is all mixed up chronologically, I'm sure. Later, then, I was asked to do a recording of Carousel, the part of Billy Bigelow, which was very exciting for me. I had sung. I remember years before I had learned the famous soliloquy from Carousel.
I gotta get ready before she comes. I gotta make certain that she won't be dragged up in slums with a lot of bums like me. She's gotta be sheltered and fed and dressed in the best that money can buy. I never knew how to get money, but I'll try. By God, I'll try. I'll go out and make it, or steal it, or
had performed it a few times. So I was very excited. But the most exciting thing about it was the Julie Jordan on this recording was Barbara Cook, one of the, queens of Broadway.
Right.
So it was a great thrill to get to work with her. And I remember we had several rehearsals. We got together at her apartment in New York over on Riverside Drive, and that was a lot of fun. And also, I did that also in playback. Um, and see the other people on that recording. Mr. Snow was David Rendall. He's a good friend of mine, a British tenor, and his counterpart was Sarah Brightman on this recording. So it was fun. And also, again, we had Paul Gemignani conducting.
Excellent. Well, even though you did that in playback, it's nice that you and Barbara Cook had a chance to rehearse together before the recording.
Yes, definitely. I could have used that for the Kismet because I got no rehearsal with anybody for that, and my part in Kismet was very big part. So that was not an easy thing to do in playback.
Oh, one of my favorite recordings of yours is Every Time We Say Goodbye.
Yes.
And I think you hadn't done it long before you and I met.
Yeah, I think that was sometime in the early 1990s. We did that recording,
You and Warren Jones.
Warren Jones, yeah. It was done in conjunction with a recital at the Théâtre Champs-Élysées in Paris, and part of it was live, and we added because they wanted an all American composers, all English for this recording. So part of it was taken from an actual recital that we did at the Théâtre Champs-Élysées, and then we added some things that we recorded, well, in the theater at Champs-Élysées, but they weren't live. They were live, but they weren't part of the live recital.
Right.
So it did, lots of. It was sort of a combination of some classicals, Charles Griffiths, Paul Bowles. But then there was a group of Cole Porter songs. And I like that.
Can you guess what my favorite piece on that is?
Well, I know what your favorite piece on that is.
What is it?
Embraceable You. That was sort of our song. I sang it to her at the reception after our wedding.
It was beautiful. On the Town.
Yes. Yes, this was, On the Town is famous musical, music by Leonard Bernstein. And the book was written by Betty Comden and Adolph Green. Well, this was done, it was a performance, semi-staged. I can't remember the hall where we performed it in London. And Michael Tilson Thomas conducted, and Comden and Green, Betty Comden and Adolph Green, wrote sort of a narrating of the story as we performed it. They read the story, and some of the performers were we had there's Tom Hampson, Frederica von Stade. The New York Taxi Driver was Tyne Daly. So that was fun. She was such a lovely lady to talk to backstage. But that was a lot of fun. I did two smallish parts. In the very beginning of the show, there's a workman on his way to work, sings a song about being up early in the morning, and then later I had a duet scene with Frederica. So,
Fun.
but that was a lot of fun. It was. I know there's out there somewhere. There's a DVD of it. It was never recorded for
Like for an album
for a CD. Not that I know of, anyway. But the DVD is out there somewhere.
floating around.
Yeah, floating around. For a while, there were a couple of selections on YouTube, but that disappeared.
Well, I have a question about this now, crossover business. Sometimes when classical singers sing other genres of music, they kind of change their vocal
Yeah,
technique
right.
and style.
hmm
Do you ever do that?
Not consciously. I don't think I think I sing these pieces as if they're operatic arias. I
Well,
sing them the same way I do an opera aria.
a lot of these early musicals were written for
Yeah,
highly
yeah,
trained, classically trained voices.
yes, exactly.
So, and they are like arias. They're not easy.
But yeah,
If you get into more current musicals, I think it would be more difficult because it's musical theater has just become a different style.
yes, exactly.
There's a sound, especially I think for men.
The old shows back in the 40s and 50s were
They were awesome.
yes, classics. They're classics.
Wonderful
Oh,
singing.
yeah, we could talk about remember the Richard Rodgers Gala that I sang on in Washington?
Yeah, I think that we, on another,
Oh, we talked about that.
we
That's
talked about
right.
it a little, but yeah, that was fun. They had a bunch of old
Yeah, John Raitt,
John Raitt.
who was the original Billy Bigelow, and Howard Keel was, he did the movie of Kismet. So, yeah,
Shirley Jones.
Shirley Jones, yeah,
Oh, and you know who else was there?
Rita Moreno.
Fantastic. Along with Kristen Chenoweth
That's right, Kristen
was on
Chenoweth,
it,
right.
and Audra McDonald.
Yeah, I got to sing a duet with Audra McDonald on that, I remember.
She was really down to earth, very
Yeah,
nice,
very
and
nice.
very talented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
still is.
Well, yeah.
I remember seeing her years ago in master class.
Well, that's where she got her big start, I believe.
Yep, yep. She was just out of Juilliard, I think, then.
But beautiful voice and a lovely person.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, you've had a lot of fun doing these things, and I'm glad to hear that you don't change your technique
right.
for the singing. I mean, there are different styles, so stylistically you will do some things that are different.
Right.
You'll relax the line a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah, sure.
But staying supported and keeping that sound focused is still very important.
Exactly.
Good. All right, well, if you have any questions about any of Sam's crossover things or want to make any comments about it,
Good comments.
only good comments.
No, we'll take some bad comments too.
And we'll delete them. I'll delete them. No. Well, maybe. So always leave comments for us, and
We'll see you again soon.
yeah. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Finché bambino parla la testa, uno che pesca fa di banar, se non mi piazza qualche ragazza, ecco che quella cerca menor, ecco che quella cerca menor, cerca menor, cerca menor, bello che l'ordine, cosa sia, il minuetto, mi la follia, tira le manna, ora dolor, tira le manna, tira le manna,